Welcome to Luscious Living, the podcast where personal growth meets wellness. Here, we talk about growth that feels nourishing, wellness that feels realistic, and habits that help you evolve without burning out. I'm so glad you're here. Let's grow together. Let's get real for a minute between you and I. You're trying to be cute, confident, put together. I mean, you are cute and confident, but your stomach has other plans. Bloating, gas, heaviness, jeans that suddenly feel a little too tight. Well, gas is not random, and it's typically not something you ate. I have seen this over and over again in clinical practice that this is your digestion struggling to keep up. And in Chinese medicine, we call this spleen qi deficiency. And if you actually look at your tongue in the mirror, you might notice that your tongue has some teeth marks around the side. This is very typical, not in every case, but really it's low digestive power. And so as your body is meant to break down food efficiently, absorb what it needs, and move everything along smoothly, when that system is underperforming, food sits, it ferments, and it creates gas. And that's when then the bloating, pressure, and discomfort come in. So if you're wanting to understand why you eat healthy or why even sometimes you eat, different things and sometimes you feel gassy, sometimes you don't, or no matter what you eat, you feel gassy, well, you are in the right place. So let me also share this from a Chinese medicine perspective because I just find that TCM explains this so well. So your spleen in Chinese medicine is not the little organ, it's your entire digestive engine. And again, its job is to convert food into usable energy, manage fluids, which is big. I see this a lot, is a lot of people are not managing fluids in their body, so there is some retention of puffiness and bloating. And again, its job is to keep everything moving. And when that system weakens, everything slows down. And when you slow down, you get bloating and gas after eating, that heaviness in your body, irregular or loose stools, low energy, and brain fog. So instead of thinking I'm gassy, the more accurate lens is to think my digestion is overwhelmed. So let's talk about what's actually quietly disrupting your digestion. And we're going to talk about, of course, solutions. So when we look at how to really, what are the things that make your digestion not feel good? And this is very common. You're going to see either yourself, your friends, your family go into these. And again, it's very common. No one's ever really talked about this unless you maybe grew up in a Chinese medicine-based household, which most people did not. And so some of the things that tip that balance, and again, think of this as chronic habits versus just a one-time thing, but iced food and drinks. And I hate this because I love iced coffee, smoothies, large salads. But for a lot of people, actually doing this over time, especially if you live in a colder climate, doing this over and over again can actually reduce gastric activity and slow enzyme function. Then food lingers longer and then you get more fermentation. So we're going to talk about some solutions around that, but I want you to think about if you do have chronic, whether it's constipation or loose bowels or bloating and gas, this is something I urge you to consider to swapping iced coffees for hot coffees. I know the pleasure is just not always the same. If you're like me, smoothies, definitely not in the winter. Large salads, again, not in the winter. So if you are in a cold country like I am, then I only would recommend these things when it is actually hot out. Then too much raw food. Raw vegetables, sushi, salads, again, is similar, so it's harder to mechanically and chemically break down, and then it's more work for your gut bacteria, then we have more gas as a byproduct. Another really big one that has nothing to do with what you eat, but overall meal hygiene, is irregular eating and rushing meals. And I know I am also guilty of this. This is either skipping meals, eating late, not chewing, or you just have no rhythm to when you eat. And this is something I'm declaring that I'm going to be working on this next quarter, is really just having that set mealtime, because again, your bile even is secreted at a rhythm, during a rhythm. And so if you're eating at 9 and then at 1 and then at 5 and the next day it's at 10 and then you skip lunch and then it's at 3 and then it's at 7 and it is hard. It's hard for those of us who are very busy. And again, if you're listening to this podcast episode, you are busy, which is why I like to have these, realistic and also actionable. So again, one thing you could do if you're like, okay, maybe you're a hairdresser and you are not able to eat at a regular time. Maybe the thing that you can do is making sure you chew properly. And that is actually going to help digestion, because when you break down food, it has to be in a chewed form for the body to recognize it. If not, the body does not recognize that food because it's just too big to be recognizable. And that's the whole concept of amino acids, as you might have heard lately, or peptides. It's essentially protein just broken down into its smallest form for the body to absorb. All right, the next one is dairy. For some people, milk, soft cheeses, yogurt. If lactase is low, then lactose ferments in the gut. That leads to bloating, gas, and that heavy feeling. I will share that from personal experience, that grass-fed milk even still does not work for me, but having A2 milk that some groceries sell, that I'm completely fine with in my coffee, for example. Just have a little bit, and that's that. And you might choose to have lactose-free milk, of course. Another one, and this is common I see as well, is overloading fiber. So beans, bran, cruciferous vegetables. If you're not used to having this frequently and all of a sudden you start having a cup a day, for example, even half a cup could trigger this. Because fiber is fermented by gut bacteria, this is normal. Too much, too fast can actually create excess gas production. Another thing is, if you eat beans from the can, they're not prepared the way they're supposed to. And so if you think that beans are giving you gas and you're not sure why, and you're like, okay, I just can't eat beans. Well, if you buy them dried, then you soak them overnight. And again, it's as easy as having a cup of beans, covering it with water, and then going to bed. So it does not have to be this big production, and then you cook it. Then the other one I have seen with people that I work with is artificial sweeteners is a big one. So aspartame, which the other name of it is called Equal, sucralose, or name is Splenda, saccharin, sweet and low. Then we have sunnit and neotame. There's a few other ones, but essentially, if anything is 0 calorie, like in a drink or in certain foods, then that over time can also disrupt the balance of gut bacteria. And certain sweeteners like sugar alcohols are poorly absorbed and rapidly fermented. Again, take with that information what you will. I know that sometimes I reach for certain artificial sugars as well, because it's just nice, like a sugar-free syrup, whatever it is. But I do notice I'm very, very sensitive to these things. And I've seen this over and over again as well. And of course, the one that's almost easier to know is ultra-processed foods. This is typically fast food, something that's fried, something that is not really recognizable in nature. Okay, so that's a good way to see it. And again, even the most perfect person might go through all of these as well. Okay, I'm going to actually just take that out. Most perfect person. I don't even know what that means. That's not realistic. But as someone who's paying attention to her health, you will probably have a salad when it's not, summer. You might have a smoothie here and there, an iced coffee, whatever it is. But this is just, again, I want you to think about chronic habits. And so if you look back and say, okay, in the past few days, in the past week, where have I maybe gone into some of these habits? And that will help you, okay? So let's talk about some solutions, how to support your digestion. And again, the goal is not restriction, it's just making digestion easier. And I do find the more your digestive system is stronger, the more you can get away with some of these things occasionally. So the big one is to lean into warm cooked foods. This is soups, roasted vegetables, steamed vegetables, simple bowls. Cooking partially breaks down the food for you, and there's less strain on enzymes and stomach acid. So whenever someone has chronic gut health issues, I ask them to have congee. You can look up the recipe, and it takes a little bit of time, but I want you to meal prep this and have congee throughout the week. I'm going to have sweet potatoes throughout the week as well. And just have very simple, bland meals like this. They're steamed, ideally as well, maybe boiled. Just keep it very, very simple until you start to notice you're not gassy. Then building balanced meals, right? Protein, carbohydrates, fats. This supports steady gastric emptying and stable energy and blood sugar. Because if you just had carbohydrates, right, we know that there's typically a blood sugar spike there. If you just had protein, then you're not really getting much fiber. There's not a lot of fiber in protein, etc. And the other one I alluded to earlier is eating with consistency, so your body anticipates the meals and optimizes enzyme and acid production. Then I am a huge, huge proponent of plant allies. So ginger in the morning, I sometimes see on social media people having ginger tea at night. It is not meant to be drinking at night. It is very young in energy, if you will. And so it's definitely a great thing to have first thing in the morning or early afternoon, but not at night. Peppermint, I would not, again, on the flip side, not have this in the morning. And again, everyone is so different. So this might not necessarily apply to you, but for the most part, peppermint at night. Then we have fennel, which is nice and neutral there, even more on the nighttime standpoint. But ginger, peppermint, fennel are all amazing to help stimulate motility and reduce gas buildup. Another one of my favorites is to walk after meals. Even 10 minutes can encourage bowel movements through the digestive tract, reduce stagnation and pressure. And if you don't already have a walking pad, I highly recommend this. Then the last aspect is to reduce extremes, less cold, less raw, less overload, fiber, dairy, additives. And then you're creating an environment where your digestive system can actually keep up. Now, another really, really big aspect of this is especially if you have alternating bowels, or especially if you have chronic loose bowels, or if you notice or have noticed, or maybe will notice that the stress connection when you feel overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, then that is where your physiology meets real life. So under stress, your body shifts into a sympathetic state, which is fight or flight, and digestion is not a priority in that state. Blood flow will move away from the gut. Enzyme secretion will decrease and motility will become irregular. And this is what we call in Chinese medicine spleen qi stagnation, or spleen qi overacting on liver qi overacting on the spleen. Okay, and that's stress disrupting digestive flow. So you have slower digestion, more fermentation, more gas, and bloating. And so some simple shifts is eating in a calm state, not while multitasking, slowing down your pace. You might even set a timer and see how fast or slow you might eat, and creating a small pause between meals. And that's why you might notice when you are out with friends, depending on the friend, depending on the location, you eat slower because you're in conversation, you're enjoying the atmosphere, you're enjoying the person, and the meal is just almost a byproduct, versus sometimes when we're by ourselves, it's like the meal, depending on your personality, of course, but maybe some of you relate to that. Because even the most perfect meal will not be properly digested in a stressed out body. Okay. And so when we put it all together, we're looking long-term, short-term and long-term. We're looking at favoring warm, easy to digest meals. This could be, again, homemade muffins. Let's say you're looking for breakfast options. It could be homemade muffins with sweet potato and carrot and walnut, or it could be some scrambled eggs with some avocado and sweet potato. For lunch, that could be a lentil stew. For dinner, that could be salmon or ground turkey with steamed vegetables as well. Keeping your eating rhythm steady, supporting your gut instead of overwhelming it, of course. Big thing is to pay attention to how you respond to foods, and really trying to prioritize whole foods as much as possible. I know that protein bars or granola bars or just some of those things can help in the meantime to keep you satiated, but I would try to optimize for, let's say you have a walnuts and an apple, you have pear and you have almonds, you might have some cottage cheese and strawberries, okay? And then staying regular, again, efficient digestion includes elimination. And over time, this will improve bloating, energy, and overall comfort in your body. So, when you support your body with the right input, temperature, timing, balance, digestion becomes smoother, lighter, and far more predictable. And that's when you can stop thinking about your stomach and focus on the beauty of life ahead. I trust that this was helpful, and I'll see you for the next episode. Bye for now. If this conversation added value to your world, I'd love to receive a 5-star review from you. It really helps to reach the right ears. For deeper dives and curated resources, be sure to check out the links below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll meet you back here next time.